The car business is rapidly changing, and modern car dealers are meeting the demand. I'm Michael Cirillo, and together we're going to explore what it takes to create a thriving dealership and life in the retail automotive industry. Join me each week for inspiring conversations with subject matter experts that are designed to help you grow. This is the Dealer Playbook. I'm so excited to introduce you to a friend of mine who has mastered the ability to grow and monetize brands on LinkedIn. She's the founder of the LinkedIn Accelerator, a video and content strategist. She's a public speaker. She's appeared on hundreds of podcasts and LinkedIn Lives and Facebook Lives. She's joining me today to share her wisdom about how you can leverage LinkedIn to grow your personal brand or your business brand, maybe your network, and of course, business opportunities. Judi Fox.
Woo woo.
Thanks for joining me on the Dealer Playbook podcast.
Excited to be here.
Okay.
Let's make a deal.
I'm dying to know. I mean, I feel like we've done this before.
We have.
A little bit of deja vu, but this time with fast internet connection. You started your career as a chemical engineer back in the late 90s, and I'm wondering, just to kind of kick this off in a different direction, are there any parallels that exist from your experience in that profession to what you're doing now on LinkedIn?
Yes. The ability to see patterns. So being a chemical engineer requires you to visualize molecules and reactions and to see things that are unseeable.
Okay.
And I do think the ability to see a piece of content out in the world and draw what I call parallels or modeling after that success. How do you do that without copying that person word for word? But how do you just model these patterns that you see online and unlock and reverse engineer why something works? And I love that because it is the unseeable. You cannot quite see why everything works. But if you have that kind of mental space that I do, I can see things that I think are unseeable.
I love that, especially in this new world where everybody's a marketer or everybody has such abundant access to marketing data or things of that nature. We've kind of conditioned ourselves in business to think, if I can't immediately map or attribute this action to that outcome, then it must not be very valuable. So that makes a lot of sense. Did you always did you always see it that way, or is that something you kind of developed over time as you moved over to LinkedIn? Because I know you talk about how in 08, 09, the economic crisis kind of really transformed much of how you work today, and especially what you do for a living. I know what that time period looked like for me. Do you think seeing those, I guess, intangibles helped you have a leg up as you transition through that time into your profession in LinkedIn? And if so, how?
Yeah, I was going to say my networking abilities and seeing how networking, like we said, we can put it down on paper. So many people have a list of connections they want to reach out to or targets or ideal clients. I hear that all the time. I want to go after these ideal clients. I think the best analogy potentially here is to think about chess versus checkers, because you can set up your checkers game and hop and get to the connection and the dots that you want to connect with and go over and make that plan of attack happen. But the chess game is way more complex, way more pieces, way more the way all the pieces move are way more complex. And I think the strategy can just blow your mind. And that's where I think of networking. And did I love playing chess? I loved it. I think my first chess board was, I don't know back when I was 8 or 9. And now my kid is 9 years old and he is beating me in chess. So wow. I think it's interesting because there's just some people's brains that work that way. So when in college, I would interview for my professors. I would find out which was the best professor for differential equations, for example, or which professor gave, like, I would ask people literally coming out of the classroom of a professor I would want for next semester. And the moment they were coming out of the classroom, I was, number one, I'm pretty extroverted and able to talk to people randomly on the street, kind of like, hey, I just saw you exiting class number 101. Would you be willing to talk to me for a second? Like, I was I don't know what to call it, but I just was willing to put myself out there, literally interact with strangers coming out of a classroom to be able to ask them, what did you think? What do you think of this professor? And then I would target them.
Right.
Because I wanted great grades and I wanted great opportunities. And that allowed me to get a scholarship to study in London. And it's like, one of my favorite quotes is, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. I think that's Steve Jobs. You can only connect them looking back. And everything is about all the dots connecting. It's a chess game out in the world, and we're just playing in it.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that chess is something that people should pick up and learn? Do you think it would help people in the business world actually understand what you've just talked about, maybe to a different degree?
I think so. I mean, do I think everyone has such different skills, and that's what makes this world so powerful, and why we don't all do the same jobs, and why I need an accountant that sees money the way I see potentially networking. Like, so do I think that I can see the financial world the way I see networking just because I learned chess? No, I will admit that and say that's why I'm not a financial advisor.
Right.
I could give my basic knowledge and my experience, and then I went and found somebody and networked to a good connection that could support that part of my life and my business. So I'm grateful every single day that we have all the unique brains on this planet that we do, but I definitely think that just because I think video games can do that for people.
Okay.
People can envision things and coordinate, and I don't even understand it. So do I think they need to learn chess? No, I think we have many skills, sports, being able to see, oh my gosh, people who can play soccer and see moves 10 steps ahead, basketball, football, like bring up any sport, and skiing, being able to move down the mountain. I just see all of this as connecting puzzle pieces that our brains are not all wired the same. And there's so much value in challenging yourself in any of these areas. Music, I mean, come on, like arts.
Right.
But yeah, I do think we as humans, and I don't know why I'm saying all this, but like we as humans just need to find that we are unique and special in our brains and can connect that to work. And I think I did find a way to move from molecular molecules in chemical engineering to human molecules of human connection and networking. And that's why I can see things. I can see chemical reactions in the air, like, ooh, this person makes sense to connect to this person because this will react and this will happen. And I do think that does translate for why I was attracted to chemical engineering and why it actually works for what I do today.
Oh, I love this. In particular, you know, what you said, I don't know if it was Steve Jobs or not, but
I think it was. Yeah.
So this quote of, you cannot connect the dots looking forward, everything that you're saying resonates with me so deeply. I mean, a simple example is this podcast. I get so many people asking me who are thinking about starting a podcast or maybe a new business venture or something to you know, they really ask insights like, what were you thinking when you got started? And the reality of it is I was just thinking about getting started. I didn't know until I saw the effect of my actions what could happen from putting myself out there or building a personal brand. And probably in a similar way that a lot of people who are experiencing success with your help on LinkedIn don't realize what will happen when they begin, but you just kind of have to begin. I know on the tail end of it that as a result of building a podcast, like, I'm not a chemical engineer. I'm a sound engineer by, trade. But I didn't, what you're saying about the ebb and flow of and seeing patterns. I just knew that if I could put value out into the world and do my best to do that, that there would be that the law of reciprocity would take effect. And in some way, shape, or form, at the time I didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a speaker or whatever. I just thought I enjoy this, so I'm going to try and do the best that I can at it, and hopefully it helps somebody. But then realizing that, oh, there is a pattern here, that when you do X, Y happens, or it triggers something, and I can't preconceive how that's going to play out. I just know that something will play out. So let me ask you this.
Ooh, can I just, before
please
ask me a question, I just want to put a pin in the fact that you mentioned the law of reciprocity. I can't even say it again. Law of reciprocity. I have to say it with fancy language. Some people are still I have to either explain it or show it in action, because you do see something that I think people don't always see, which is there is that law operating on this planet. And until you see it in action, sometimes it's hard to trust something. It's this nebulous, if I put these two things together, they're going to react and create C. But you can't see C yet. You can't see A plus B equals C because you've never done it. So does it work? You are a testament to yes, it does. And can you fine tune it to make it work better or easier or smoother or less of a kind of hustle culture?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are hustling for reciprocity and they don't quite understand the law of it. And I think there's nuance to that. So I think that's really cool, because some people are like, but I thought I earned it, and they don't quite see it. Do you see what I mean?
Yes,
where
right.
That is the magic. We assume it's easy, but it's understanding these platforms and kind of how it does work, and what is social capital and what is investing in that law, and what decreases from that law and pulls and takes out a deposit from that law of reciprocity.
do you think that also feeds into this maybe sense of entitlement? I'm thinking about the website boom back in the, however, it's been almost 30 years now.
Mm-hmm.
If I just build this website, they will come. If I just have this Facebook profile, they will come. If I just create this LinkedIn profile, they will come. And then everybody gets discouraged and they go, see, it doesn't work, not realizing, like you said, that there is nuance to how you navigate these platforms. And I love that I asked you about your past in chemical engineering, because I would have never anticipated how you actually tied that together, but it's creating such a valuable visual in my mind. Now,
well, and I think what you just said, I am creating all this value, they'll just come. Because if we have heard the word value in 2021, I'm pretty sure I'm at about 200,000 times that I've heard the word value. I don't know if it just took off during 2021, if it was like Clubhouse meets value and dropping gems and the energy of the word value. Just deliver value. If you have ever gotten that advice and you literally think you're going out, and I think that's the pain point of saying somebody over here with the best heart, the best intention, tons of knowledge, tons of what value they can give to the world is huge, but they get 0 likes and comments, and they're over here going, but nobody's seeing it. I've got somebody over here getting 200,000 views, and I don't understand why I can barely scrape 100.
Right.
And I think that's where we're kind of trying to close that gap for some people to understand it's not just giving value just for, hey, value, or else everyone would be getting 1 million likes and comments.
Yeah, right.
So
let's bridge that gap. I mean, you were not immune to 08, 09, the financial crisis. Many of us were. I mean, I remember in a single day losing like 30% of my business, just vanishing, and you're like, what? But during that time, you really realized for yourself the power that LinkedIn could have, specifically in growing and building your network. How did you approach networking on LinkedIn without the desperation? Or did you at first? Because I think, to your point about value and everything, dropping gems and how people are approaching content creation, that's another word we hear all the content. They're approaching it. You can sense this level of desperation. Like, I need this and I need an immediate return right now. So on the back of everything that we've discussed up to this point about the ebbs and flows and patterns and how people actually move, the chess game of life, shall we call it, how did you approach building your network and digging in and realizing the power of LinkedIn in particular during a time when everybody was really desperate?
Yeah. So I wish I had this quote at this time, but I was the actions of doing this quote. So the quote is, go give what you want to get, which feels really awkward. But if you are desperately wanting something, you go give it. Now, what does that look like when you're trying to search for a job or you just got let go from a job? So there were kind of a perfect storm when I joined LinkedIn. So I joined LinkedIn on February 9th, 2009. I lost my job, or at least I knew I was kind of in that mix of losing my job right at the end of 2008, 2009. They did the layoffs in 2008. I made it through by the skin of my teeth. But I saw hey, we're going to do another round. And if you take what's that thing called? Like a volunteer, like right. We're going to give you these kind of bonuses because we then don't have to kind of like lay you off. Like it becomes this weird balance of what I called I took a temporary leave of absence. So I technically didn't lose my job, but I took a leave of absence for 3 months at the beginning and it got extended to 6 months. And then I got laid off. So it was a very weird transition, but it worked out great for me. Sure. It worked out great for the company because they needed to lay people off and they didn't actually have to quote unquote lay me off right that minute. So it was kind of like a good transition for them. It was a Fortune 500 company. I know exactly what day because I know what day I joined LinkedIn because it was the day after my birthday. And I booked a plane ticket to travel around the world. And I ended up, home base was in Germany. And then I packed up everything, got a renter in my townhouse and traveled around the world in 2009. I think, is that even before Airbnbs? It was such an interesting time to try to find, like I found things through Craigslist and through... Right. I mean, and now we look at Craigslist like, what? Yeah, exactly. But back then it was pretty legit to find a place to stay. Sure. So, but back to LinkedIn, signed up, and my initial goal was reach out to 2 people a day that I knew from my past. I'd already worked on a project. We'd done consulting together. I'd met them at a conference, some tie to them that I could reference. Hey, we met at a conference 2 years ago and I got an eyelash in my eye. Okay. We met at a conference 2 years ago and I got an eyelash in my eye and you helped me get it out. I'm just kidding. But I would say the thing that I was taught, I joined this company in 1999, and between 1999 and 2009, every business card I collected, I put a note on the back. How did I meet you? And I still have that stack of notebook or cards. Yeah. Because we used to exchange cards all the time. We don't barely do that now, but I would write a note, how I met them, and if there was anything unique. And then I just grabbed all my cards and I hit the road and I traveled the world. And all I did was pull out one card out of this Ziploc bag I had, and don't ask me why I put them in an unorganized Ziploc bag, but it was like a raffle. And I just pulled out a card and I looked at what I wrote on the back, and then I found them on LinkedIn and I would send them a message and say, hey, how many of those have dude with bad breath written on the back? I'm just curious. Funny. I don't think any of them do at all, but I do have to say, I think a couple of them have those funny moments. Like there was one that I went on a conference and we all went out to dinner in Put-in Bay, is in Lake Erie, I think. Okay. And it is a cool adventure that you can do, but the ship, the little ferry boat, broke down and we were the last ferry boat at like 11 p.m. We were adrift in Lake Erie till 3 a.m. with rescue and helicopter. And I was like, so that went on the back of every single business card. And I was like, do you remember our like Lake Erie trip? So I got a response from everybody on that. They were like, oh my gosh, we survived Lake Erie. We should have made t-shirts. Like we survived Put-in Bay. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, they're going to be like, what in the world is she talking about?
That's awesome.
But put the notes, make a note, any micro note, because it'll serve you 10 years later.
Yeah.
And that came true for me. It was powerful. It was
you had a manual, you had an analog CRM on the back of business cards. And it's funny that you do that. That is such a valuable takeaway, because look at how underutilized CRMs are today, that they don't have notes about those little contextual moments. Like people aren't even putting birthdays or anything in there. So the fact that I really think you were ahead of your time there, in that your brain said, no, let's make a note so that I remember how we met each other. I think that's tremendous. And I think I did have a
boss who was about near retirement, and that was one of his pieces of advice. I do have to say, who mentors you early on in your business career? And if you listen to podcasts like this is mentorship. This is getting that advice that can change. One action 10 years ago can change where you are 10 years later. Wow. It's that analogy of planting the tree.
I love it. If you had to break down the most crucial lessons you learned about LinkedIn during that time, what would they be? And do they still hold true today?
Yes. So that final conclusion of what I did was I gave what I wanted to get. So instead of coming to these people saying, I need a job, here's my resume, I actually formulated a bit of a template. It was not totally copy and paste, because I still put in the personal thing, like, hey, remember meeting at so-and-so, remember we did this, remember when you tripped on this sidewalk. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But right. Whatever I put in my notes, I would have a personal opening, or if I remember working with them on a project. But I did something that, instead of me saying, hey, I am not going to have a job in 6 months, I basically said, I want to check in on you. I want to make sure your job is doing okay. You're still thriving. If you need a connection or a network, I was giving to them what I knew I eventually needed and wanted when I was done traveling. It just happened that I didn't actually need something until I actually was officially let go. So I had this perfect experiment of having what did I call it? A leave of absence for 6 months. I had enough savings. I had enough everything. And I technically couldn't work because I was planning in my brain and in that company to come back to that company after that leave of absence. So if all things had gone well, I couldn't predict the future, but I didn't actually need a job, but I needed the potential that if I needed a job, I had reached out to them. And we all talk about build your network before you need it. Even just a 3 to 6 month lead time is enough time to build that network that I discovered in 2009. Without really doing it on purpose, I discovered the power of reaching out to people, not having an agenda for me, and authentically actually meaning, what can I help you? Like, I'm available. I'm just traveling the world right now. If you need a network connection, I have been pulling on my network right now. Let me know, because you may need something. You may be struggling. You may need a job. You may need a connection. Yeah. I don't need something right now. And that is what actually got me my job, got me the connections, got me the job that wasn't even advertised, because it was before they advertised it. They knew I was available. And I'd been on their radar chatting back and forth for the past 6 months. So
underscore, build a network before you need it. I think, would you agree? This is how I feel, at least. A lot of the feelings I've had about, say, Clubhouse or the way people navigate social media, because of that desperation that I pick up on, I must sell today. I must get the macro goal accomplished today. It's because really they're trying to make up for lost time of the thing they knew they always needed. For example, when lockdowns started occurring, I was raised to always have a food storage. And so because I had proactively, little bit here, have water on hand, have non-perishables on hand, because of that, we weren't rushing like fools to grocery stores and supermarkets because or afraid of not knowing what to expect because we were already prepared. And that's kind of the visual that comes to my mind when you say something like build a network before you need it. Had you built that network and you're living proof of it, when you needed it, would you say that kind of eliminated fear or unnecessary stress from the mix?
Yes, it's not only eliminated it at that moment in time, but it if I can be confident enough to say that, I feel like it's eliminated it for the rest of my life. And here's why I say that. When I went through another big life moment change in 2014, I became a single parent, which is a big transition in life to being the sole provider of your child and putting a roof and buying a home and doing all those things. I was able to quickly network to a job like that it all came from, that was 2014. So it all came from the activity in 2009, everything. And what's interesting is the people, when I showed up at work, there were people that I had networked with all the way back to even 2000 and 1999. So I had either done a project early on in my career, and I walked into work and there was one person that I had worked with back in 2000 and worked on a project. And I will even circle it even further back. There was a woman there that I had met when I was 17, when my dad took me to work. And she is somebody I interviewed when I was 17 with these little note cards with my shaking hands as a 17-year-old, like talking to the senior VP of environmental at a major company. It was when I was 17 years old, and I met her and I kept in touch with her over the years. And I kept, as the 17-year-old, I just circled back, and she was one of those people in 2009 that I wrote her an email and I said, just wanted to reach out to you and let you know that you impacted me as a 17-year-old to do a couple things in my career because of some of the things you said. And the notes I wrote down on my note card were still in that bag. Crazy. So I know that's analog. I even get goosebumps because before she went and got on retirement and left that company, I took her out to lunch, and I just feel like it came full circle. Like it's so cool. Like it's so cool. And she never forgot me and I never forgot her. So,
you know what I love about this conversation is it's because look, I know you get asked these questions all the time. I know people are like,
I don't think I've ever told these stories though.
Yeah, no. And that's why I love this, because I'm getting a different angle about LinkedIn, where I think historically people just want to know, what are the 3 actions I can do today? But what I love about this is, no, this is about the power of building a network. Can I share a quick little, very recent experience with LinkedIn and why I think it's such a powerful platform and speaks to the whole concept of building a network? So, and I think it ties in perfectly to everything that you've been teaching on this interview, which is, and this was 2 weeks ago, about a week and a half ago at the time of recording this. So now you have a contextual reference when you're listening in the year 2045. 2 weeks ago at the time of recording this, we were talking through some things that we want to accomplish as a company, and other companies that we need to get some connections with, and who do I need to know there so that we can start building a relationship, that sort of a thing. Well, according to what you're saying here, most people, and I've observed this, they go and it's direct to the thing. Need job, post about how I need job. Need to hire, post about how I need to hire. Want to grow, want to get more clients, post about how I need more clients. Well, you've taught me that in the spirit of networking, it's more about like getting to know people and being real human and showing that side of things. I posted recently a picture of my wife and I which I haven't really ever posted on LinkedIn. And I was just saying, here's a member of my team that nobody sees, who rarely gets the praise in the same way that, a traditional employee would get praised, but who is very much on the team. And I posted about this. Anybody can go and see this. That morning, Judi, I had researched some of the companies that I need to get in touch with. Okay. And I'm like, and I listed them out. Then I go to LinkedIn. I do my LinkedIn activity. I post this thing. 2 hours later, I get a connection request from a key decision maker in one of those companies who I've never had contact with before. You know how he found me, though?
Through that post?
Through that post, because one of my friends who has nothing to do with the automotive industry, who actually lives in France right now, one of my friends just so happens to have been a friend of his that he went to college with. And because my friend liked my post, it showed up on this man's news feed. And that man said, hey, I'm friends with Scott. I went to school with him. I see you know him. I saw your post, which has nothing to do about and now we have an open conversation and a connection in a way that I would have never, I don't believe in coincidences, but boy, oh boy, do I believe in the power of not just like what you've been teaching, not just going right to the thing, taking the steps before the thing so that when the thing arises, you're ready and prepared for it. And it completely blew my mind.
That is what it's exactly, first of all, that is an amazing story. And it is, we want to think some people might be like, well, that's just unique to Michael. No, it's available to every single person. I just had a client who made a comment on somebody's post, and his comment got 300 plus likes and comments.
Wow.
300 on a comment. And that's not his own post. It's commenting on the power of somebody else. And it opened up doors and conversations to people that he may have had on his, I need to get a hold of these people. But without sitting around constantly focused on, I only want to talk to the CEO of this. And we forget that the CEO has how many people supporting them, that they're hiring, that they're networking with, they're barbecuing with, that they're best friends from college with, that are now traveling and they happen to be in France. And I have an amazing client that is in France, and he runs one of the top language schools for business communication translating between French and English. Mm-hmm. And he found me on LinkedIn. And it's not because I was posting and being the most amazing expert. I was networking in a wider community, and I ended up meeting somebody and not really judging the fact that they own a winery in France or they make champagne, or you know what I mean? I don't know if they can call it champagne everywhere. It has to be in a specific region, right. But it's funny because am I trying to get hired by a winery in France? But this was the kindest person to me. Mm-hmm. And I think we just forget that everyone knows somebody. Everybody knows somebody. We never know who was the au pair for somebody 20 years ago, who was the accountant that worked on a project and you all happened to work together at this whatever firm. And then you followed your careers going forward, who went to college together. And undergrad, and now somebody went to go to law school and somebody else went to become a YouTube star. I don't know, all these different paths, but we cross paths with so many people on this planet that we just never know.
I know it's so tremendous. I want to thank you. You have been key in reframing my mind. I've never particularly loved social media. I mean, even people that listen to the show will sometimes comment you're not super active. And I just really feel like if I can't be meaningful or authentic, then I'm not just going to post something for the sake of posting it, because I've realized the benefits of it. But the training that I've received from you about LinkedIn in particular has reframed how I approach social en masse, realizing, I guess the huge reframe for me is, these are not advertising mediums, even though you can advertise. These are build connections with other living, breathing human beings. And if you can do that authentically, the outcomes are actually going to be bigger, bolder, and better than you probably could have ever planned for. Going back full circle to your quote from Steve Jobs about not being able to connect the dots moving forward. So I want to turn this just back over to you one last time. How can those listening get in touch with you and participate in your LinkedIn Accelerator?
If you go to Judi Fox, JDIFOX.com, you can find all my social media handles at the top. So LinkedIn, I'm obviously very much more quote unquote active there. And I love that you pointed out the activity. I, on average, am posting about once a month.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are like, what? But I'm probably commenting and engaging every single day.
Yeah.
So what is our definition of active? Personally, for me, I'd rather be out commenting and engaging. I just got over 100 likes and comments on a comment, but it's not an original post. I went out and supported somebody else's post. So commenting is activity. I have to tell people that because they might look at my content and be like, she didn't post for like a month.
Yeah, no, I think it's very clear. There is a method to it's not even madness. It is very calculated in only a way a chemical engineer might be able to do it.
So yes, find me online. I've done every iteration of Judi Fox as much as I could. I think I have JudiFoxRocks.com. I've got a lot of Judi Fox out there. So Google Judi Fox, JUDIFOX, and you will find me. Judi, and I'm glad to connect on LinkedIn.
You're tremendous. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're tremendous.
On the Dealer Playbook. Oh, shit.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Cirillo, and you've been listening to the Dealer Playbook podcast. If you haven't yet, please click the subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. Leave a rating or review and share it with a colleague. Thanks for listening.